Now, what happens to us when we're lost? Where do we go according to the Secret Doctrine?
Well, consciousness keeps developing. She's one of the first people to think of the individual as multifaceted. At the time she's writing, it's just the usual body and soul dichotomy or mind and matter. But she posits the individual as sevenfold. It has, of course, physical form, it has mind, it has desire, and it has these higher principles that are latent, sort of intuition and this spiritual spark. So at death, the lower parts, being of the earth, earthy, can't travel on to these spheres. She has this intermediate state, almost like the bardo in Tibetan Buddhism. It's called devachan. So this is the state where it makes up for all the unhappiness you've had in life. This is the wonderful place where you find the fulfillment of all those high spiritual aspirations. And then, of course, when that is exhausted, not so much the personality, not Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones comes back, but the conscious, that spark that has ensouled all these different forms, comes back again in another form, supposedly in a higher state.
Where was Madame Blavatsky on ghosts?
She certainly says there's such things, but she gets very against spiritualism, and she certainly she thinks those are the forms that are so materialistic that they haven't died out yet. So the spook or the ghost is just like the human body, but on a more subtle plane. So they're there, but they're derived of this higher consciousness, and they're sort of left like graveyard ghouls just to hang around and haunt the places they once knew.
But these are, that the ghosts that are left behind are not as evolved as the ones we would never see.
You could say that, yes. The ghosts are the coarser parts, and of course the higher consciousness is what then simply continues.
This would say then that perhaps the ghosts that people detect or attempt to capture using, like, EVPs or whatever, that they are in a state of evolving, that they may be there for a while, but that they may too may be growing and going on to another level.
Well, the higher part certainly will, but the lower forms, if it's a form or a shape, that eventually is just going to decay like the body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happens to the world? Did she have insight into the end of the world?
She talks about, the world is just part of many of these cycles. She talks about these, she uses from Indian philosophy, the Manvantara and the Pralaya, these days and nights of Brahma. So you have the development of whole worlds, and then, of course, they get extinguished, and then the process is an ongoing and eternal process, but each time evolving onto this higher state of consciousness.
Are we the only world that's populated?
No, she certainly doesn't. She with the infinite possibilities, she actually has a lot in key with Giordano Bruno. He has this idea of multiple universes. So with her, everything is happening all at once. All of creation, this is just, as she says in the beginning of the Secret Doctrine, the eternity of the pilgrim is like a wink in the eye of self-existence. All of this is happening, even though it seems like centuries, millennium to us, is just one divine thought, one moment in its wonderful development and crescendo.
Let's talk about the symbols that she collected. She was very interested in symbolism.
Yes.
Okay, and so how did that inform the Secret Doctrine?
Because these symbols have, or in turn, are correspondences. They correspond to some divine reality, out of which the symbol is just the physical form. And in fact, the very first chapter in the symbolism part, she quotes a 19th century writer, Gerald Massey. And for instance, he gives the example, he says that when the Egyptians portrayed the moon as a cat, they were not ignorant enough to suppose that the moon was a cat, nor did their wandering fancies see any likeness in the moon to a cat, nor was the cat myth any mere expansion of a verbal metaphor. They had observed the simple fact that the cat saw in the dark, and her eyes became full orbed and grew most luminous by night. The moon was the seer by night in heaven, as the cat was equivalent on Earth. So the cat gets adopted as a sign, a pictograph of this symbol, of this lunar symbol. So she's saying these symbols, in turn, can be keys to this reality. I mean, I also want to say the importance of the secret doctrine for her, with the evolution of human consciousness, unless the individual has really made an attempt to, the things that you discuss on your show, that these ideas that are beyond the purview of the ordinary person,
right,
that unless they really stretch their mind, they won't be anything in turn to really survive, because it's only the higher parts of consciousness that survive. So if you want to survive, you better get the Secret Doctrine and read it.
And that's advice that Michael Gomes is giving today, especially at Amazon.com, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, but interestingly enough, I've been told by other people that she didn't reveal everything. Is that true?
Well, it wouldn't be secret if she did. As she says, the Secret Doctrine are just the rudimentary fragments of this whole teaching that, in turn, that we can comprehend at this state of development.
All right. But she had a manuscript that's 3 feet high. It's 2 volumes, and she's still holding out?
Imagine. And she's still left. I've seen, actually, there is a draft of the Secret Doctrine that I've seen in India in the archives of the Theosophical Society that is her draft. In turn, she wanted to do a 3rd and 4th volume of this book. Could you imagine?
I can't, actually. I don't know what's left. I mean, then it's like, after a while, how many secrets are there? What's Jay holding on the box down in front of curtain number 3? I mean, where do you go with that after a while?
I think the end result is that isn't that there is this, great cosmogony and humanity is developing, but then in turn, what do we do in this world? How do we in turn function in this world? What are the standards we use? She was really writing at a time when Christianity was really under attack by science. Yeah. Interestingly, she does not support the Darwinian evolution theory that man develops from the ape. Man is a spiritual being that it actually precedes animal consciousness, animal form. Again, life precedes form with her.
And I think a lot of people actually mistake the 19th century as being some sort of high watermark in Christian history, and it's not at all. It's really interesting.
It's a very different Christianity. Imagine, there were penny pews. You had to, you paid to go into a church. You had your pews. The poor, of course, weren't allowed. And, of course, it's a Christianity that I don't think a lot of us would really recognize today. Eternal damnation, original sin. Who hears a lot about original sin anymore?